Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wealth Wednesday. My name is April Joy with Alla Joy and Associates, and our mission is to help families build stronger financial foundations through education, protection, and home ownership. You know, the last couple weeks we've been going over different ways to clear up debt and make, improve your credit. I gave a couple of examples, the avalanche and snowball effect. We discussed saving, right? So we're supposed to be saving $20 a week, right? We're supposed to just start making that effort if you don't have 25, right? But we talked about different methods and things about that over the last couple of weeks. And so tonight we're talking about how your daily financial decisions determine your future. So, it's called Wealth Wednesday, right? And that's kind of an umbrella because I think there's a lot of different ways that a person can build wealth. And so I kind of wanted it all to be together, even though we may talk about real estate sometimes. We may talk about, financial literacy. Right now, I'm kind of going through some of the financial literacy pieces and, savings, debt, budget, things like that. Because as we dive in deeper, in fact, next week we have a guest speaker that will be talking about life insurance and how to first of all, be properly protected with the right amount, but also how you can utilize that cash benefits as well as growing income to put your kids through college or, some of the other things. So we'll talk about that on next week. So right now, I just want to ask, when you hear the word health, what's the first thing that comes to mind? I know a lot of people will say, I have a lot of money. I have, a bunch of cars. I can buy what I want, things like that, right? But many people think that it's simply that you have a lot of money. But wealth is really about options, freedom, and peace of mind. So today we're going to talk about living below your means. So I had a client actually call me and talk to me about this in regards to buying a home. Is it better that the husband and wife, only one goes on, or does it make sense to go put both of them on the mortgage, things like that? And of course, it varies depending on your personal situation, so I can't give a blanket answer. But what I will say is that what I've learned over the years, and an old friend told me this, that you should try to keep your expenses as close to, it's kind of difficult now because things are costing so much, but it's close to being able to be taken care of by one income. Because if at any time one of you lose your income, you don't lose your things, right? And so we've been talking about that, but we're just kind of really getting into this. So living below your means, if you make $10,000 a month, right? You don't need to spend $9,999 every month. And I mean that to say, like, your expenses cost that much, not like your wants and needs. Because you should, when you're trying to save, those aren't the important parts. But not getting let's say you are in an apartment and you're preparing for, buying a house at some point. Not getting the $3,000, condo or whatever when you can get a, $2,000 apartment, right? So even though you can afford more, that does not mean that you need to spend more, right? It's the time to invest that extra money, save that extra money, make sure you have an emergency fund, make sure that you have things in order so that if anything happens, you're taken care of. Eliminating unnecessary debt. So sometimes we just carrying certain debts that we need to just go ahead and get paid off, right? Even if it means I can only pay $20 a month. But trying to eliminate as many unnecessary debts that you have helps you keep more money in your pocket, in your bank account, and into your investments. So protecting your income is the next one. And of course, that goes along with the insurance conversation that we're going to have on next week with our guest speaker. But you want to make sure that you're protecting the money that's coming in. You go to work every day and you're making your money and you're doing things, and then something happens and there's nothing, you didn't use that money properly. You didn't protect it for future use, right? So that's one of the things that we kind of talk about. Owning, appreciating assets, right? So it's important to understand what appreciative assets are, why you should own them, what's the best option for you. And of course, we like, as a realtor, right? And having mortgage lenders coming on and speaking to you guys, we would be talking about homes, land, things like that, where those things will appreciate. You will have equity in your house that you can pull from. You can sell your house if if something goes wrong. Like it's an asset, is not just a debt being taken out. You know what I mean? You're earning something, as opposed to an apartment. You're paying them rent, but you can't go back if something happens to you and say, I need to use some of that money to take care of my day-to-day bills, right? You're not going to be able to do that. So leaving something for the next generation, I think that it's important. It has been difficult. It is difficult sometimes because the cost of living just keeps going up, and the incomes are not matching how much everything is costing. However, like I was saying last week, even if you didn't have the $20 a week and you had to eliminate one thing, and that one thing was $5, take that $5 because it still adds up. I remember when people were like, you want your change, you want your pennies? Like, yeah, pennies add up. 100 of them gives you $1, and so on and so forth, right? So even if it's a small amount, take that small amount and apply it to your debt, to your savings, to your emergency fund, so that you can be ahead of the game and create that generational wealth for the next generation, right? So income pays today's bills. Wealth creates tomorrow's opportunities. So like I said, you get your income, you pay your bills. If you take some of that money and put it into opportunities that will allow your money to grow by investment, whether that be property, whether that be the life insurance that I'm talking about, whatever investments that you have, a business that you may be investing in to help someone else, but that investment has a return of income, right? So return on income. So of course, that's something that makes sense to use your money for, because it will keep growing and give you a lot of progress for you through your life, right? All right. So 5 decisions that change your financial future. And the first one is, and I have a hard time with this a lot of times when it comes to like cash money, like, money in the bank. Pay yourself first. Now, sometimes, we're like, well, I work for this money. I deserve to get X, Y, and Z. But the better thing to do is to pay that to yourself, in the sense of putting it in a savings account, putting it in, just something that you're not touching. You took it out. You're doing it consistently, and that will help grow your money and your wealth in the future. Even if it's only $25, $5, $50 each paycheck, however you can do. Because the thing about it is, small amounts invested consistently grow over time. You don't need to wait until I'm going to invest once I have $5,000. I'm going to invest once I have those $100 or those $50 that you were accumulating to get to the 1,000 or the 5,000 before you invested, could already be making you more money. So by the time that same time period has gone by, you're double up. You know what I mean? There's a potential for more. And so that's kind of what we have to do. So how many of us wait until there's money left over before we save? And that's a part of the problem. And that's why we would create a budget. So talking about that on last week or the week before, about writing down everywhere your money goes, because a lot of times we're just spending money. If all of your money had a specific category into which it went, you would know exactly where your money was. If you split your check in 4, 3, however you need to do it, emergency funds, savings, bills, and of course yourself, right? So, or investments. It just depends on how your plan works for you, right? I know that, yeah, we have to start doing it even with the small amounts, because as I say, pennies add up to $1. Dollar bills add up to 5, 10, 20, 100. So we need to make sure that whatever we have, and that's a part of, I talk about on my Thursday night, I talk about Allah, right? And God wants us to be good stewards of our money. So that's it. Even if we have a small amount, we need to manage that money effectively and properly so that God will bless us with more, and know that we're able to handle it. Know that we're saving. Know that we're paying zakat, tzedakah, that we're doing what we need to do, right? So we have to make sure that we put our money exactly where it needs to go so that we could count every dollar. I've been told, and I think if you watch The Mortgage Lender, Miss Yvonne, she said she talks to wealthy people all the time. And wealthy people, if you ask them, how much is your interest rate on your car? Where is this? They know exactly where their money is going. And sometimes we're a little careless. We just stop at the store. We go here, we go there. And those $2, $3, $4, $5 add up to $50 a week that could have been going to savings. So not that it's easy for sure, but it is manageable. It's something that we need to start doing, every week. So protecting your income, I did talk a little bit about that. There's disability coverage, critical illness coverage. So a lot of people, when they think about life insurance, it's pretty much like the death benefits of life insurance. But there are living benefits to life insurance. And I'm not going to go too deep into that right now because we have a special guest next week. But just an overview of putting your money in there and your money growing while it's also paying your premium. And then you are vested after a certain amount of time and you're able to pull that money out. Or you're paying into your life insurance. You got critical illness and something happens where you don't qualify for death benefits because you're still living, but you still need to pay your bills and recover from whatever might be happening. If you're able to take the time to focus on your healing, as opposed to, I still don't know how we're going to pay rent. I don't know how we're going to pay the mortgage. I don't know how, you know what I mean? So we want to start protecting the money that we already have, the assets that we already have, and making better decisions on how to really utilize the money that we have. The greatest asset most families have isn't their house, it's their ability to earn an income. So the fact that you can get up, that's first of all, one of the greatest blessings that God has given you, that you woke up today and have the opportunity to do better today than you did yesterday, right? So don't worry about what you didn't do, what debt you still have. Start today with $5, $100, whatever it is that you can do, and start making a budget and paying yourself, and also applying the money where it needs to go to make sure it benefits you the most in the future. So we have to manage our debt wisely. So we talked a little bit about the snowball method, and that is to add an extra $100, and it don't have to be 100. We just use that as an example, to your lowest or least amount of debt that you have. So you're paying the minimum payment, but you added, so let's say the minimum payment for that particular one was $50, right? And all the other ones have their thing. You continue to pay the minimum amount or whatever you plan to pay on the other debts, but you start with an extra $100 that you apply to that lowest $50 payment, right? And even if it's only a $300 credit card, let's just say, then you pay $150, $150, and then you move that 150, because that was money you were spending now. You move that 150 up to the next debt. Let's say that debt is 500. You pay 150 plus whatever the lowest minimum. So the minimum is 25, let's just say. You pay 175, 175, 175 until that debt is paid. You move that 175 up, add it to the minimum payment, and pay that, pay that, pay that. That is the snowball method. And it's a little bit quicker than the next method that I'm going to talk about, which is the avalanche method. So the avalanche method wants you to save more money over time by paying the highest interest rate in your list of debt. So if you got an interest rate of 14 and then you got a couple interest rates of 6, you're going to start with the one up here at 14% and pay that extra on that particular one. And so even though it's taking you a little longer to knock that one off with the extra money, you're saving more money because the sooner you get it paid off, the less interest that you'll pay on that particular debt. So we just have to be really smart, right? Because debt doesn't define you. Everybody has had debt. People file bankrupt. It is what it is. So no judgment. We have to have a plan, right? Have a plan, work the plan, trust in God, and things will work out in the way they're supposed to. So becoming a homeowner, right, is another way. So building equity in your home. Like I said, if you purchase a home and you're making monthly payments on that home, you are building equity and value in that home that you may be able to utilize later. We talked a little bit about appreciation, right? Stability. Becoming a homeowner gives you a sense of stability. Also, making that home your homestead. That is where you are. Those are the benefits that you can earn by, of course, owning a home. And something that someone told me is they had owned a home for quite some time. And during that time, they had faced layoff, termination, figuring it out, whatever that is. But they were able to make that work with the mortgage company, make the payments, the minimum, just all of the things. And they were allowed to stay in their home. If you guys know, when it comes to rent, if the money isn't in there by like the 4th, they charge you a fee. If it isn't in there by X amount, they're going to file an eviction, right? They're not going to just work with you over a month to month, right? So it creates a stability by owning your own. And then generational wealth, right? We want to create a world for our children that they don't have to go through all the things we may have had to go through financially, because you've set them up for the future. You've invested in home ownership. You've invested in buying land, or, going into business, or, one of those things, right? And now you're investing it in the right places. You're putting it in the right places. You're keeping that emergency fund so that when you get paid day to day and something happens, you can pull from there and you don't bother your regular bills. Everything is still getting paid. Everything's getting paid on time. That's increasing your credit. That's increasing your generational wealth. That's creating an environment for you to grow and learn more, right? So home ownership is one of the biggest wealth building tools available for many families, because it's one of the largest purchases, which makes it emotional, which makes it very connected, right? Especially if it's a home that you're going to live in, not investment, but, and even that is a great thing. I'm not saying that, but when you own your own home, that is the wealth building tool. Whether that be you pull out some equity in order to fund something that's going to still get you more money, whether that be another property that you can rent, whatever that looks like for you, it can create that for you. Okay. So we got to look at it, in a lot of different ways. So what I want to say is for you to keep learning. Come here every Wednesday. I'll continue to give you guys tips and tools on managing your debt, your credit, and investments, home ownership, proper protection, anything wealth related, I'm going to bring to you every week. Okay. If there are specific topics that you guys would like for me to talk about, tell me, right? If you have a book or something that you read and that, you feel something for you to share, make sure you send it to me. Right? We can grow together. That is the whole point of me creating this, is because a lot of us do not know. I'm learning a lot of things along with you. So we're in this together. One episode, 1 week at a time, right? So whether that be reading books, listening to podcasts, financial education, never stop learning. It's important. God put it upon us to continue to learn and educate ourselves, right? So we need to do that. We all can grow in some ways, and learning always helps. Excuse me. And surround yourself with people who are where you want to be, right? Not necessarily where you are, which is fine, right? But also people that, they already, own homes. They already run successful businesses. They already have the investment plan. Whatever that is, you can look up, right? Look up, and then you surround yourself with that. And you're learning their habits. You're learning the things that they do every day to make their businesses successful, to make their lives successful. So I kind of want to, have a little interaction with you guys. I have a couple of you on here. So I just want you guys to put in the chat. If you want to talk, I can add you in the video. But if you just want to put something in the chat, that's fine. But the first question is, what financial habit changed your life? I think I kind of talked about it from my perspective. I'll wait on you guys to put a couple comments, but I'm just starting this. But definitely I understand how bad overconsumption is, right? Because we just buy. And like I said on another live, excuse me, COVID didn't help. Because then we start, okay, we got to have it. So now everybody has all this stuff just in case something else happens. We're prepared, right? But then we've spent all this money on stuff that we don't need right now, that could have been invested to grow so we could still get that later when we need it, and also have money that we've invested and saved, right? Building a budget and sticking with it. Yes. That is something, because if you know where your money is, you know where and how you can make the changes to make that money grow. Also, when you start looking for a home, looking for, that next thing, you want to show that consistent income, consistent payments of debt. So you want to know exactly where that money is going and how it's growing, right? You want to be debt free at the end of it. So if you build a budget, you stick to it, whether that includes debt or not. As you pay those debts off, you're still increasing your budget and your value within that, right? So being broke and overconsumption. Now I'm trying to learn how to save. Absolutely. A lot of times, like I said, the income that we have is not matching the expenses that are going out. But we have to learn how to minimize the stuff that we're buying that is unnecessary or not needed at that time. So I do that. I mean, before COVID, I would find sales on, laundry detergent. I would have a whole thing full of laundry detergent, And that's fine. That's good, to have it. But it's just like, I probably spent money this month on all of this, even though it was on sale, right? That I could have taken and invested and had 2, 3, 4 times that next month when I actually need another bottle of detergent, right? So that's just something that we have to work on because we don't always need it. So what I'm doing now is learning to, I put in my little Amazon cart what we need for that month. I don't think about, okay, they got it on sale, so I'm going to buy 20 of them, 50 of them. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm just going to buy, okay, we need 3 body washes because we only have 1 or whatever. You know what I mean? I just look at what we have and what will we need before the month is over. And I only buy that. I don't buy extra. If I don't need it, I don't buy it. And I think I said last week, there's this little saying where it's like, if it's not a heck yes, it's a heck no, right? If you're questioning, I might use that. You don't need it. Don't get it. Or don't, if you have it, sell it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need it. Just spending and not saving for me. I need more self-control. Yes, like I said, just because we make $10,000 don't mean we got to spend $9,999, right? Seeing the money sometimes is a problem too, which is why you probably need, or we sometimes probably need, a savings account that is not as easily accessible. You don't have a debit card for it. You put it over there, and if you need it, you have to go through something a couple days for it to get there. And I hate that it's a delay in that, but it leaves it where you're not tempted, because that thing that you're like, I need this money for today, now you got to wait 2 or 3 days, and you realize in 2 or 3 days you didn't even need that extra to do whatever, right? You could have just waited for whatever it is. So that's definitely a thing. That self-control, especially as you make more money. It's like, I make it, so I want to be able to do this and do it. And yes, you deserve some things, but you have to be mindful of what those things are and where and when do you treat yourself to those things. And sales don't really be sales anymore. No, they don't. They don't. I look at stuff all the time and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This was $25 last week. Now they got it at $24.50, but they also put that it was more so that it looks like it's some kind of sale. It ain't. So don't get caught up. That's why I say I don't go to the grocery store, right? I don't go to the grocery store because when I start seeing all those sales in the store, I create a list in my Amazon, in my Kroger app as I need stuff. So I have my phone generally with me when I'm in the kitchen, and I'm like, I need to get butter. I'll go ahead and put it in the cart. I need some salt, whatever it is. And that way I know those are the things I need. if I want something extra, I go to those things specifically to get them, as opposed to just it all being in my face, right? I see everything. So I'm like, oh, we need all this. We don't need it. We didn't need it. You know what I'm saying? I need that. Yeah. All of it gone. Yeah. I mean, it's easy. Like I said, if you don't know where the money is going, stopping at Starbucks, stopping at, McDonald's, I don't know, Chick-fil-A, Panera Bread, the money's gone and you don't even know it. You look back and you're like, oh my God, I spent $100. Whatever it is. I just opened a high yield savings account. Yes, because the taxes that would be on your money is probably around 4%. You want to try to find a high yield savings account that's around 4%. And they have them. You can actually Google, high yield savings accounts with a 4%. I think American Express has a savings account like that. So they do have them and they are beneficial. But you have to leave the money there. You got to leave it there. That's the thing. And that's why I said it needs to be something less accessible, right? So that you're not jumping over there and like going in it and, oh, I'm going to go use it for this. I'm going to do some that. Somebody said SoFi is one. I think I've heard of that. Not familiar, haven't used it, but I've heard of it. So what financial lesson do you wish someone taught you at 18? I have a few of them. Number one, to save and to pay myself first. I never really did that. And creating a budget, like we said. The other thing is investing. Because had I known, even at 18, but even if my mom knew or I knew, I would have invested in a life insurance policy that has cash value. Because by the time I would have gotten through college, I could have enough money that I can pull back, be vested in, and use that to start a business or, pay off debt that I accumulated through school, whatever that looks like. But I wish I knew better. If you received, yes, somebody said save. Yes. If you received right now in your account an unexpected $10,000, what would you do with it? Put it in the chat, guys. But I will say we kind of talked about this one time. Last week, we talked about when you get the extra, even though we start calculating the extras even before the extras get here. If you do get a refund check from the IRS, you already calculated it. But that was money that you weren't expecting, even though you did your taxes and you saw it. But I'm saying like in your day to day, that's like extra money. If you get a bonus from work, so the $10,000, if it was a bonus, unless you had something that was in the negative, or that you needed to pay right now or because something happened, you know what I mean? The best thing for you to do is try to invest that. Save that. Go ahead and start your emergency fund. Someone said pay up bills. Yes, that sounds good, right? But I will say this, like rent, for example. Let's just say you went and spent, I got enough money to pay 4 months of rent. And you actually paid it to the complex. And in 2 months, something happens and the apartment get flooded. Now you're waiting on that money back that you already paid rent. You see what I'm saying? So yes, you want to get yourself ready for the future, but let's get yourself ready in a different way. Pay the taxes on it and save the rest. Right. Pay whatever those taxes are. Get it out of the way. You weren't expecting it. So don't go on a shopping spree. We like to go do stuff and everything. Set a goal for yourself. I don't know if you guys were watching the interview that I did with Jared, senior loan officer in Savannah, where he was saying that his brother told him, like, he gets, whatever his percentage is on each loan that he closes. And his brother said, every time you set a goal for what you're going to reach in that year, and in that year, if you reach it, you can spend 1% on whatever. You can blow it on whatever you want. But you can only do it if you reach that goal. So once he reached $1 million, right? He did his 1%, right? He's trying to get to 2 million. And it's not like, okay, I made $1 million here, $1.5 million, and I made 5 in the next year. No, what did you make this year? And was it the goal that you set? And then that you take the 1% and you do that. as opposed to just spending it every day, right? Your day to day, monthly to monthly, you need to be saving, investing so you can accumulate wealth. Invest, yes. All right, let's see. So, I give you guys a challenge. I try to give you guys a challenge every week to help you grow, to help me grow. I'm doing these things with you, okay? So we are in this together. But review your monthly spending. So if you've been on the calls, we talked about doing a budget. Go ahead, if you haven't started, go ahead and sit down and actually write down all of your debt. I don't care if you're not paying it, if it's just on your credit and it's there, put it all out, put it all down, because eventually you got to pay that off. And the sooner the better to create the wealth and to have more ability for your money that you're getting every month. Set one new savings goal. So our goal right now was to save $20 a week, $80 a month, about $1,000 a year. Right. So but if you don't have the 20, because I understand times, until you create your budget, but I'm sure once you create that budget, you got an extra $20. But until you do, at least $5. Like, just start doing it. Start putting it. Open that high, that account, that savings account, right? And go ahead and put the $5 in there and just have it come $5 every week. Just go on in there. Just do it. Start. Schedule one financial conversation with a professional, right? So, of course, I have appointments for us to talk about life insurance, for us to talk about financial literacy, home ownership. I have resources that I can also provide to you all. Just send me a DM if you want to be referred to a nonprofit that I work alongside that helps with debt and credit, helps you, learn all the steps, the budget. She'll check in with you weekly. It is Operation Hope, but I can also refer you specifically to the person. So, tonight, I just want you to tell you, I truly believe wealth isn't reserved for a select few. It begins with knowledge, intentional decisions, and taking action. Whether your next step is purchasing your home, protecting your family's income, reducing debt, or simply creating a budget, every positive decision moves you closer to financial freedom, right? Everything that you do is getting you there, to the generational wealth. And again, wealth doesn't mean I have, $10 million in the bank. Wealth means I've invested it properly so that I am taken care of for the remainder of my life. So I don't have to worry about Social Security. So I don't have to put a burden and go back to work and, all the things, right? If you have to, you have to. But if you can start right now, that will help you get to that place a lot sooner. Remember that your financial future isn't determined by where or when you start. It's shaped by the decisions you make starting today. So if you haven't started the savings, look into it. Look into the accounts, and make sure that you get one that's good, but also you don't need to be as accessible as we would like it to be, because that's when we start pulling from it and spending when we don't need to. All right. So like I said, I would be willing to connect with either of you. Anyone for a first-time home buyer guidance, real estate consultations, insurance protection reviews, and financial literacy coaching. But also, I will be here every Wednesday for Wealth Wednesday. Next week, we have a special guest that will be talking about life insurance, IUL. She's going to get a little deep into that. If you have questions that you would like to be asked already prior to, send me a DM. I will reach out to her, let her know that these are some of the audience questions that I already have, and we'll make sure to try to get those answered. And there will be a portion of it for questions and answers as well. So I'm going to ask you guys to do something else. And then this is for me, right? Share the live stream. I place these videos on YouTube, and it is Baraka the Muslima with April Joy. So you can watch them later, but also subscribe to the channel, like, share, watch the other videos that I have so you can see where we've already gone. You can see the special guests that I've already interviewed, and hopefully I become that trusted person that you turn to when you have questions so that we can grow and build this generational wealth together. I, of course, invite you to come next Wednesday for Wealth Wednesday, but also tomorrow I will be live as well doing Barakah the Muslima. And those are just authentic, real conversations with me. The last couple have been protecting your peace, and Tawakkul, which is trusting in Allah, right? And Saber is a part of that as well. So we will talk about some of those things tomorrow. And then I'm just going to give you guys, I'm just going to make this closing dua for us, okay? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless our wealth with barakah, grant us wisdom in how we earn, spend, save, and give. Make us excellent stewards of what he has entrusted to us, and allow our wealth to benefit our families and our communities in this life and the next. Ameen. Allah, please forgive me if I misspoke, said anything out of context, or gave any information that was incorrect. I don't think that I did, but if I did in my ignorance, please forgive me. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow with Barakah the Muslima with April Joy. You guys have a good night.